Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. The story of Luthen Rael is a fascinating one. There are very few characters that are as single-minded as he is, but at the same time have such a complex mind and moral outlook. So far, we've really dived into the larger picture of what Luthen Rael has been trying to accomplish with his Axis network, and, just the various themes that surround his character. But there is one thing that we haven't really looked at nearly as much, and that is the tactical decisions that Luthen must make on a daily basis, which ultimately ends up with him burning agents and assets that work for him, like poor Lonni Jung. Now, Luthen is willing to give everything for the rebellion, and no, it's not just talk. He quit his 9-to-5 in the Imperial Army, which probably gave him good health insurance and dental. He gave up his name, his identity, just so that he could create this new persona, which gets him closer and closer to the centers of power. And when push comes to shove, it's clear that Luthen is willing to even sacrifice himself to protect the rest of the rebellion, even if it means physically causing himself a ton of pain. Which kind of changes how I see this statement he makes to Saw Gerrera in the first season.
I'm a coward. I'm a man who's terrified the Empire's power will grow beyond the point where we can do anything to stop it. I'm the one who says we'll die with nothing if we don't put aside our petty differences.
Petty! Luthen isn't afraid of being caught by the Empire. He isn't afraid of death. He calls himself a coward because he's terrified that his operation won't be more successful, and that will push him into more and more chaotic behavior, including not trusting his assets, not believing that they will pull through. Remember, at the time of this conversation, Luthen was searching for Cassian and Andor. After the Aldhani raid, Cassian just sort of vanished, and no one had any idea where the young thief had disappeared off to. Luthen ultimately decided to send Cinta to Ferrix to kill him because he wanted to close off that loose end. Luthen has long ago already dropped his own fear of death. What he still fears is what evil he has to do to his own allies and friends. He can't really let go of that last piece of humanity and morality inside of him because, ironically, that's what set him on this path towards rebellion in the first place. Luthen kind of entertains this idea that he's somehow strong enough to maintain his humanity and also carry out this very difficult military operation against the Empire. And for a brief moment at the end of the first season where Luthen takes back his kill order for Andor, it seems like that is the case. But then we're brought back to reality pretty abruptly. I realize this not because of how Luthen acts, but because of how Cassian acts. He is, after all, Luthen's greatest student. In the second season, when we first see Cassian, he's about to steal a prototype TIE fighter from Cinar Fleet Systems, and an Imperial tech who is really nervous about the situation confides in him.
If I die tonight, was it worth it? You've done this before. You must have thought about it.
You see the guilt in Cassian's face initially before he is about to respond to this woman. They did a great job casting her. She seems both vulnerable and innocent at the same time. This makes what Cassian's about to do a lot harder. You see, just like Luthen, Cassian has to kind of lose his humanity in order to take a step closer to the rebellion. The events in the first season have radicalized Andor somewhat and also opened his eyes to just how evil the Empire can be and what needs to be done in order to make sure that they aren't able to survive any longer. But there still is a sign of inner moral struggle in Cassian. Take a look closely at Cassian as this tech asks the question here. Notice his eyes going from her, and then looking down, and then finally looking away. This is a clear tell sign from Andor that he's about to lie. First, looking away from a person while they're talking means you're uncomfortable with what they're saying. That's obvious. And then looking down means you feel a little shame. And then looking to the side off into the distance is a way for Andor to kind of collect his thoughts and come up with a response.
This makes it worth it. This. Right now. Being with you, being here at the moment you step into the circle. Look at me.
Look at me. Cassian gives a verbal command so that the tech can fully absorb the propaganda he is about to spew into her mind. Where does Cassian learn this skill from?
And where are you stationed?
I've been training on Steerguard, but we're all being transferred now.
Really? And where's everyone going? As safe as we can be. Yavin. Tell me about the weapon.
The leaning in closely, that is an attempt to dominate the environment, dominate the conversation. You are not only moving yourself physically close so that the other person feels no space, you're making sure that they focus intently on what you're about to say to them. Lonni, who works in the ISB, who's aware of interrogation tactics, should have known that Luthen was doing this to him. It's really a gray area whether it's okay that Luthen and Cassian are using these techniques to influence individuals. In Cassian's case, he is giving this tech moral strength and courage before this operation, right? He's not in the TIE fighter yet, so he can't have her freaking out before that happens.
This. Right now. Being with you, being here at the moment you step into the circle. Look at me.
What Cassian says here really helps her calm down so that she doesn't think about what's about to happen to her once he leaves. She's probably going to get caught and sent to prison. Or if she does have an escape plan, it's not going to be easy. There's also a power dynamic here that Cassian is exploiting. The tech has already discussed with her supervisor that he looks cute, and she's also very deferential to him. She sees him as a senior member of the rebellion. Initially, she's worried about breaking some kind of protocol by looking at him. My personal assessment, if I were Cassian, is this girl is clearly not aware of what's about to happen to her. She's too sweet and she's too innocent. We're going to call this off, and this is why I'm not a rebel, by the way. But yeah, this all felt wrong, but I understand why Cassian has to do this, for the greater good. What Luthen and Cassian are able to do so well is compartmentalize their morals and look past the individual faces that must be sacrificed and on to the end goal of defeating the rebellion. And this is also directly tied into, which individuals Luthen Rael is able to sacrifice or not. He doesn't really allow himself to have moral or ethical concerns. I mean, that does shape some of his decisions. I think he actually has an emotional connection with Kleya. He might not sacrifice her, but everyone else, it's very rational, right? He will never sacrifice the important people if he can help it. And if he can save some people because it's strategically a good idea, he'll also go in that direction. Everything is very clinical. For instance, Mon Mothma is an individual that Luthen Rael is more than willing to sacrifice everything for.
And if she gets arrested?
It all comes down.
Whereas Vel and Cynthia, he's kind of willing to throw away a little bit more, even when Andor warns him not to engage them on Gorman.
They're not ready, Luthen. I think they know that. That's why we sent you. There's nothing to be done about it now. And the more trouble they make, the worse it will be. There's always something to be done.
So again, it doesn't really matter what Luthen thinks about Vel and Cynthia. That's already been ripped out of the equation. What is important is that these two individuals are probably easy to replace. Vel is a good team leader. Cynthia is an excellent assassin. They can be trusted, but they've always been expendable from the very beginning because they are foot soldiers. Unlike Mon Mothma, who has political legitimacy on her side and also the right mindset to lead a new opposition government. But what about individuals like Lonni Jung? He is an exceptionally useful asset. He's Luthen's mole within the ISB. This is the organization that is tasked with hunting down the rebellion wherever it might pop its head up. Having Lonni within this organization must have been a huge deal when it happened. Not only does Luthen know what his most dangerous enemy is thinking, Lonni can even warn him personally if Major Powdergas catches wind of his operation. In many ways, Lonni should be almost as important as Mon Mothma, but here's the thing, unlike Mon Mothma, who is a future leader in the rebellion, Lonnie's usefulness, his window of usefulness, is in the Imperial period, and that is quickly closing. Luthen spent a massive amount of resources inserting Lonni into the ISB. He was groomed and trained to fill in this position, and Luthen seems to have also sacrificed some assets in order to make it seem like Lonni knew what he was doing. We're not just talking about Anton Krieger being sacrificed, there seems to be earlier situations that Lonni benefited from as well. Lonni also appears to be enjoying the fruits of his position as a high-ranking member of the ISB, something that Luthen mentions, which is not good. Because all of these things are given to Lonni with an expectation of some kind of return. When Lonni shows up in the first season in that elevator shaft, he makes a huge miscalculation with Luthen by asking for a way out.
I can't do this anymore. I'm a father now. I had no idea how it would feel.
We took a vow.
Yeah, Lonnie's not in an easy position. What he's going through is almost suicide. And it's very clear that not just anyone can do this. Lonni is a special operative.
I'm giving you Dedra Miro. I'm giving you Spellhouse, I'm warning you about Ferrix. I'm honoring my vow. I've been working my way through there for 6 years. Working my way up. Alone.
But here's the thing, he hasn't really given anything actionable to Luthen yet. Or Luthen hasn't acted on any of his intel because he's trying to protect Lonni, like when the raid on Spellhouse is compromised. This is really common amongst intelligence agencies. In World War II, when the Allies cracked the Enigma code, they were very careful on how they used the intel that they learned from cracking the code, with a heavy emphasis on not letting the Germans catch on to the fact that they've cracked the code. Luthen has always been saving Lonni for something really big, and I think Lonni lost sight of that somewhere along the way in the last 6 years. He was always going to be Luthen's ace up his sleeve, but when Lonni told Luthen that he has a family, that he's had enough, well, he completely destroys his own credibility and becomes a liability. Prior to this, Lonni was already not trusted because he is an ISB plant. The ISB is notorious for turning spies into double or triple agents. It's clear that the contact that these two have is quite limited as well. Luthen's Axis network rarely meets in person with Lonni, and Lonni doesn't seem to really be that familiar with his entire operation either. By letting Luthen know about his family, by letting him know that he's afraid, Lonni is actually sabotaging his own capabilities in front of Luthen's eyes. Lonni makes the miscalculation that Luthen is still somewhat human in how he views him. Unfortunately for Luthen, everything is about calculations at this point, especially when it comes to all of his operatives and assets that he's running in this massive war against the Empire.
You love your daughter. Krieger's men will be dying to make sure she has a father. You're trapped, Lonni. There's no pleasure in saying it, but you're going nowhere.
Luthen striking back at Lonni with this blackmail should tell you everything you need to know about what's going to happen to Lonni. This is an extremely important moment, and it's a notable shift in these two's relationship. In Luthen's eye, Lonni at this point went from a relatively trustworthy asset to one he must now control with any methods possible. Lonni has crossed the line. This is a betrayal, whether he realizes it or not. He's outside of Luthen's circle, and that is very dangerous for him. The ISB has become much more important in the 6 years that Lonni has been embedded in the agency. After the Aldhani heist of the launch of PORD, the ISB has even more responsibilities than ever before. This makes Lonnie's role even more important, and it also makes his actions even more visible. This increases the stress that Lonni has and makes his job more difficult. But also the walls have been closing in around Luthen as well ever since Aldhani. He's far more flustered and overwhelmed than ever before, and Clea is struggling hard to keep everything together. As Luthen becomes less stable, he also becomes more fearful, and therefore he needs to close off loose ends. When Lonni comes to Luthen for help, he doesn't really understand just how much danger he is in this situation. He also doesn't understand his main bargaining chips either.
I have had Dedra Miro's code cert for a year now. Total access. Her private storage. I knew if I told you, you'd push me to use it. But if she's on to you...
First, Lonni starts off by admitting that he's withholding information from Luthen, which is another strike against him. Lonni, in a lot of ways, is quite naive to have been undercover for as long as he has. He's also quite naive for someone working in the ISB. He should know better than anyone that his usefulness is the only thing that really is keeping him alive in this situation. Whether he's working for the Rebellion or the Empire, that is just how intelligence agencies work, especially people in his role. He is a double agent, and historically speaking, that is one of the most dangerous places to be because by his nature, he is untrustworthy, and all of his handlers who know about his duplicity are aware of this. Lonni also overestimates his own value and Luthen's morality. In every conversation he has with Luthen, he further destroys his own credibility and value. This misread of Luthen will cause his life, because what is Lonni to him at this point? Well, Mon Mothma is the steering wheel for his future revolution. He can't really sacrifice her. Andor is his wheels. Also can't do without that. But Lonni, well, he's more like a map. Not like Google Map, which is constantly updating, but a physical map that doesn't update. They're useful, but only in a certain place and certain time, and unfortunately, that window of usefulness is closing for Lonni the second he gives up the Death Star plans. Lonni is either naive or just willing to lie to himself that he's important enough somehow where Luthen will save him even after he gives up this information. I'd argue before he blackmailed Luthen and admitted to holding intel from him, there was a chance that Luthen might value his skills, which are pretty impressive. You know, we get to see Lonni more in action in the second season, and he's a sharp guy. But now that Lonni has shown Luthen his weakness, given up the only bargaining chip that he has, He's basically placed his life into Luthen's hands, and unfortunately he doesn't realize that he's become a huge liability, and he's probably not that useful to the rebellion because he's burned his identity. And so when Luthen actually tells Lonni where they're gonna go, Yavin, I knew that Lonnie's life was about to get forfeited. I don't think Lonni is even aware that Luthen doesn't believe he'll get out of this situation alive. And maybe this is because Lonni is in the ISB. In some ways, these guys have all these tools, all of these surveillance techniques, but they are kind of blind to the situation on the ground. And maybe they're trying to illustrate that Supervisor Jung, despite being a rebel, is still influenced by the Imperial side of his job, and he doesn't read the situation the right way. There's no way Luthen is going to take a chance on a man who has a wife and kids that can be used against him. There's really no future for Lonni Jung except for death. It's both horrifying and also amazing what a man with a purpose can actually do. And it's also really sad what has to happen to Lonni Jung, because just like Luthen or Al, Lonni is going to be forgotten by history, but his impact has been huge. He is one of the links that made sure that the Death Star plans, or the idea of the Death Star, gets to the rebellion. His role in all of this is huge. It is epic, as Luthen mocks him in the first season. But yeah, anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.